The horizon pressed down like a bruise as Lena Cross stood on the edge of Ura's jagged cliffs, her body trembling not from fear, but the sting of humiliation. The cameras had stopped rolling, but the judgment still burned in every face behind her. The crew, the contestants, the producer who smirked as though this was all just content. They said she was disruptive, too critical, too unwilling to play along. They called it a vote, but she knew it was exile disguised as entertainment. The helicopter's rotors carved the air, drowning the crash of waves that smelled of iron and decay. As she climbed aboard, she looked back once, just once, and saw Kai Otero standing on the beach, his hand raised but his face unreadable through the oncoming mist. A silence grew behind her that felt less like distance and more like warning. Days later, in a sterile evacuation shelter along the mainland coast, Lena watches the horizon through fogged glass as journalists crowd beyond the barricades. They ask about the storm, about the show, about what it felt like to be the one they spared. Each question feels like a blade sharpened by curiosity and ignorance. She answers nothing. The television hums in the corner, showing static footage of the cyclone consuming Aruba. No signal since the first impact. No survivors confirmed. The air smells of antiseptic and sea rot, the scent of something once living but not yet gone. In the silence between thunder and broadcast, Lena wonders if the storm ever ended, or if it simply moved inside her. On the screen, an emergency broadcast plays, fragments of the island's last recorded feed, contestants shouting, waves breaking into static. Harlan Boss's voice cuts in mid-sentence, warning of unusual atmospheric distortions, before the screen turns white. Lena leans forward, her breath shallow, recognizing Kai's silhouette for a fraction of a second before the image melts into snow. A sound follows, a low, pulsing rhythm beneath the static that matches the island's name when whispered. Aruba. Aruba. Government officials arrive. They call it a debriefing, but the room feels more like an interrogation cell. Lena sits across from three officers in crisp uniforms who don't look up from their tablets. They ask how early she left, who stayed, what she noticed. She answers mechanically until one asks if she believes the storm was natural. The question hangs like smoke. She meets their eyes for the first time and answers, "I don't think the island wanted us there." The room goes still. Someone records that phrase as though it were evidence. That night, unable to sleep, Lena answers a ringing satellite phone left on her bedside table. The voice on the other end crackles with distortion, soft, rhythmic, familiar. "You shouldn't have left," it says. "We're still here." Static fills the line, and she swears she hears breathing. The ocean's kind, slow inhale. When she drops the receiver, her pulse sinks with the distant thunder outside. The storm has found her again. Days blur into white walls and measured questions. The officials return. More subdued this time, their voices careful and rehearsed. Lena sits across from them, the air thick with disinfectant and distrust. They tell her the storm's satellite trail vanished halfway across the Pacific, as if it never existed. No debris, no remains. She studies their eyes for honesty, and finds only fear disguised as bureaucracy. When they leave, she notices a thin line of salt on the floor beneath her chair, a tide mark no one else seems to see. It glitters faintly under the fluorescent light, forming a curve like a shoreline. Late that night, Lena wanders into the media control wing, the place where survivors' statements are archived. Monitors flicker with looping footage of the island before the storm. Contestants laughing, cooking, bickering, utterly unaware. She leans closer to one feed that suddenly shifts to live signal. For a heartbeat, she sees Kai, his face lit by lightning, whispering her name. Then the screen cracks, leaking a trickle of seawater across the floor. The room goes dark. Sleep offers no refuge. In her dream, Lena walks barefoot through the flooded corridors of the production camp. The sea, rising around her ankles, her breath thick with mist. She hears laughter ahead, the same laughter from the show's opening theme, but warped, distant, and hollow. The palm trees move with the rhythm of breathing, inhaling with the wind and exhaling through thunder. When she looks up, the clouds pulse with human silhouettes, mouths open in silent screaming. She wakes with salt water pooled on her pillow. The next morning, a courier delivers a sealed envelope. No return address, just her name scrawled in black marker. Inside, a single flash drive labeled Muradain Field. Lena plugs it into her laptop. The video plays. Mira's face, tense and weary, filmed in the final hours before the storm. She warns that the producers knew the cyclone wasn't natural. Its core pulsing like a heartbeat, its winds humming at frequencies that shorted equipment. Mira says she's staying to record everything, her voice breaking as thunder drowns her out. The footage cuts to black. Then a final whisper. It's not the storm. It's the island waking up. Unable to ignore it anymore, Lena drives to the shoreline before dawn. The tide is unnaturally high, the water trembling as if breathing. She steps closer and hears it again. Her name whispered from beneath the waves, not in voice but in vibration. Kai's voice. The ocean ripples like a living pulse, echoing the pattern from the broadcast hum. When she drops to her knees, the surf reaches her palms, and for a moment she swears the foam shapes itself into words. Come back. The tide recedes, leaving her alone with only the sound of her heartbeat and the knowledge that the island is calling her home. In a warehouse near the harbor, Lena stands among rusted shipping containers and faces a group of salvagers hired to find Aruva's remains. They're rough men, weather-worn, skeptical of her presence until she speaks, with precision, with the authority of someone who has lived the storm in her bones. She explains the coordinates, the magnetic anomalies, the gap in satellite imaging that pulses every 21 hours like a heartbeat. They listen. One man crosses himself. Their captain, a silent figure named Rourke, finally nods. The deal is mated in the language of risk, half up front, silence upon return. Lena signs without hesitation. At dawn, their vessel, the Callisto, cuts through low fog, its hull echoing with the groan of rust and intention. Lena stands at the bow, hair whipped by salt air, watching the coastline shrink into colorless horizon. The crew murmurs about bad luck, about storms that hum before they arrive. The radar flickers, not malfunctioning, but pulsing, as if signaling back. In her chest, Lena feels a familiar rhythm, one she first mistook for her heartbeat. She closes her eyes, and in the wind, the island whispers her name again. Midway through the second night, the storm's static returns. The radio spits fragments of a transmission that shouldn't exist, the same frequency used by the island's production crew. Mira's voice breaks through for half a second. Don't, then vanishes. The captain orders a systems check, but the compass needles are spinning counterclockwise. Lena grabs her old handheld recorder and plays it back, hearing faint waves that crescendo into breathing. Every device hums at the same tone, matching the ocean's rhythm. It's not interference, she murmurs. It's response. The following morning they encounter it, a vertical wall of fog rising from sea to sky, unmoving, like a living curtain. The GPS freezes, and the ship's engine falters, as though afraid. Rourke curses and orders reverse thrust, but the vessel drifts forward anyway, drawn by an unseen tide. Lena steps closer to the railing, transfixed. Within the fog, shapes move. Palm fronds, faces, shadows of people, walking in silence. The crew recoils, shouting prayers. Lena only whispers. It's still here. As the ship pierces the fog, time fractures. The world shifts from gray to green. The sea glass clear, the air vibrating with low resonance. The island emerges ahead, not wrecked, but alive, pulsing with impossible vitality. Trees glisten as if carved from obsidian and coral. The shoreline breathes mist like an animal sleeping. The crew stares in silent awe. Lena feels her knees weaken. It's not a place anymore, but a memory of a place. Something that remembered her. "Aruva," she whispers. The island exhales. When the skiff touches the sand, the air feels heavier than it should. Thick, electric, breathing. Lena steps off first, her boots sinking into black powder-fine grains that pulse faintly beneath her soles, as though measuring her weight. The jungle hums a low resonance that vibrates through bone rather than air. The crew fan out cautiously, weapons drawn though no threat yet shows itself. Every leaf seems to tilt toward them, each movement deliberate, aware. Lena kneels and touches the ground. It's warm. She whispers softly, "I'm back," and the wind answers with her own voice. They push inland. The trees are not trees anymore, but skeletal coral towers clothed in moss, glistening with moisture. The sound of insects has been replaced by rhythmic pulses that mimic a living heart. Rourke mutters about getting samples, but Lena shakes her head. Nothing here feels inert. The path narrows into a tunnel of green light. Her compass spins again. When she places her palm on a trunk, the surface ripples under her touch, veins of bioluminescence spreading like recognition. For a moment, she feels the island's pulse sync with her own, and something deep within welcomes her back. They find what remains of the old production camp, or what's become of it. The tents are still there, upright but empty, coated in a fine crust of salt, as if drowned and reformed. Cables snake into the ground, pulsing faintly with light. A rusted camera sits on a tripod, its lens reflecting the forest canopy like an open eye. Rourke orders a quick sweep, but Lena walks into the center of the camp, staring at a chair where she once sat during confessionals. She imagines the old producer's voice prompting her to speak, and then realizes the recorder light is on. The island is still filming. Inside a half-collapsed tent, Lena discovers Mira's final audio recorder, still powered somehow. She plays it. The voice is faint, but alive. If anyone hears this, the island isn't killing. It's cleansing. It remembers what we took. Thunder murmurs distantly, though the sky above remains clear. Rourke calls her name, but she's transfixed. In the background of the recording, she hears Kai's laughter. Not old, not memory, but fresh, as if echoing right outside. She steps from the tent, eyes wide, heart racing, and whispers into the wind, "Where are you?" As night falls, the jungle begins to sing. The trees emit harmonic tones, vibrating like instruments in unison with the waves. The sound is hauntingly human. Layers of whispers, laughter, mourning. The crew panics. One man flees toward the beach and vanishes into darkness. Lena stands still, the music coursing through her veins. She recognizes voices, every contestant, every crew member, all blending into the island's new breath. The fog thickens, glowing from within. She looks skyward, tears glistening, and murmurs, "You're not gone. You became it." Somewhere deep within, something answers. They follow the trail of humming cables into a subterranean cavern, a vault of drowned technology. Rusted servers, broken monitors, and thousands of data drives pulse faintly with internal light. Rourke's crew mutters in disbelief, realizing this isn't just a camp. It's a command center buried alive. Lena wipes salt crystals from a terminal and powers it on. Mira's voice emerges again, repeating fragments from her earlier recording. Then another voice overlays it. Harlan Voss, calm, rehearsed, detached. He's dictating posthumous edits to the footage, directing the storm's narrative arc. Lena's stomach turns. The island's storm wasn't natural. It was orchestrated. The catastrophe was content. The monitors flicker to life, not with static, but with a pristine feed. Harlan's face appears impossibly clear. He sits in a studio, perfectly lit, the same tone he used during production briefings. "If you're seeing this," he says, then Aruva has resumed signal. His smile is thin, almost proud, Our footage survives us. That's immortality. Lena steps closer, trembling. The timestamp reads tomorrow's date. The feed cuts to Kai's face, alive, smiling faintly, before the image distorts into a cyclone of color. The island is broadcasting from nowhere, rewriting its own story in real time. Rourke's men, shaken by what they've seen, decide to abort. The captain insists they've found enough proof to sell. The rest is madness. But Lena refuses to leave. You don't leave something alive, halfway dissected, she says. Rourke calls her possessed, his voice rising, hand trembling on his weapon. She tells him that the island isn't dangerous. It's remembering. The jungle responds to their shouts. Vines twist subtly. Sand shifts. When Rourke fires a warning shot, the sound doesn't echo, it's absorbed. A heartbeat later, the ground trembles. The island has chosen a side. The island reacts violently. The ground heaves. Trees convulse, and the sea rushes inland with animal force. The crew scatters. But the storm forms again, sudden and circular. Not in the sky this time, but within the air around them. Lena runs, clutching Mira's recorder, voice shouting over wind. It's trying to cleanse us! Lightning flashes from beneath the soil, arcs of light racing across roots and machinery. Rourke's silhouette vanishes in the glare. Then, silence. Lena collapses to her knees, drenched, alone, surrounded by the sound of breathing earth. When the wind stills, the island glows dimly. Alive but calm, as if exhausted. Lena lies against the sand, chest heaving. Then she hears him. Kai's voice, soft, close. You weren't supposed to leave. She sits up, tears mixing with salt water, searching the shadows. Where are you? She whispers. The surf responds. A ripple of light takes human form for an instant, smiling faintly before dissolving back into the tide. The island exhales once more, gentle this time, as if forgiving her. Lena realizes this isn't survival. It's inheritance. The morning after the storm, the air lies still, dense with vapor and silence. The crew is gone. Only scattered footprints remain before the tide erases them. Lena follows a low hum vibrating through the ground to a fissure hidden by ferns. From within comes a pale, rhythmic glow. The same cadence as the pulse that haunted her dreams. She descends, slipping past roots that breathe like lungs. The deeper she goes, the warmer the air grows, heavy with salt and memory. Voices echo faintly from the stone, murmuring names she once knew. At the tunnel's end, the sound resolves into a single whisper. Lena? She enters a vast underground chamber bathed in living luminescence. The walls shimmer with coral veins that pulse like arteries. At its center lies a pool of translucent water, reflecting the ceiling as if it were the sky itself. Within the reflections, Lena sees movement. Figures walking above her. Replays of those lost on the island, their laughter turned to echo. She kneels beside the pool and touches it. The surface warms to her skin, rippling outward in concentric waves that form faces. Mira, Rourke, even Harlan. You see us because we remember you, the voices say together, merging with the hum of the cave. The air shifts, and the light deepens into ocean blue. From the water's reflection, Kai Otero, 28 male, rises, not solid, but luminous. His features serene. He speaks without sound, yet she hears him perfectly. We didn't die, Lena. We changed. She steps closer, trembling, reaching out. Why me? She whispers. Kai smiles, faintly sorrowful. You left because you listened. You were the only one who still heard the island breathe. His image flickers as water ripples. It's not done yet. Then the pool darkens, its light drawn inward like a held breath. The chamber walls shift like liquid, projecting visions from before the storm. The contestants laughing, the producers manipulating, the storm building unseen beyond the cameras. Lena watches herself, younger, defiant, shouting at Harlan. She realizes she was never voted off for her defiance alone. She was expelled because she sensed what the island was becoming. The air hums louder, resonating with her heartbeat. The ground beneath her feet pulses in rhythm, acknowledging her awareness. The island doesn't want revenge. It wants a witness. Lena kneels again by the water. The island's heartbeat grows slower, steadier, aligning with hers. "What do you want from me?" she whispers. The chamber responds. The coral blooms open, releasing pale spores that swirl like fireflies, encircling her. A gentle voice, not Kai's but the island's itself, speaks inside her mind. To be remembered, to be left alone. The spores settle onto her skin, leaving faint patterns like tidal scars. When the hum fades, the light dims, and the silence feels holy. She rises, reborn as both survivor and witness, no longer separate from Aruva but part of its pulse. Dawn returns to Aruva, calm and unbroken. The sea glows faintly around the island's edge, the tide exhaling soft light as if the earth itself were breathing sleep. Lena stands at the shoreline, her body marked with the faint phosphorescent veins left by the island's touch. She feels no hunger, no fear, only belonging. A small boat rests before her, carved from the island's own coral, a gift or a command. She looks once more at the jungle behind her. It moves like a chest inhaling. "Thank you," she whispers. The island's response is a single wave that breaks without sound. She steps into the boat. Days later, a fishing vessel spots her adrift near open waters. When they bring her aboard, she looks unscathed, though her eyes reflect an otherworldly calm. The crew speaks to her, but she answers little, her voice distant, as if speaking through water. At the port, officials swarm her with questions. What happened? How she survived? Where the others are? She tells them the island is gone. They laugh nervously, insisting Aruva's coordinates still exist. "You'll find nothing," she says softly. It remembers who heard it. The officials exchange glances. Her file is marked mentally unstable. Weeks later, she's invited onto a televised interview. The sole survivor speaks. The studio is bright, sterile, filled with cameras like the ones that first exiled her. Across from her sits a polished host who feeds on empathy. "Do you believe the others could still be alive?" he asks. Lena studies the lens instead of him. "They're not gone," she says. "You just can't see where they went." The audience chuckles, uncertain. For a moment, the lights flicker, monitors glitching with flashes of waves and palms. The hum of Aruva's pulse briefly fills the speakers. Lena smiles faintly. "It's still here," she whispers. Alone in her apartment, Lena begins recording her own documentary. The walls are lined with marine charts, storm diagrams, and stills from the lost footage. She speaks quietly into a handheld camera. This isn't a story about survival. It's about listening. As she talks, condensation forms on the window behind her, tracing the outlines of Aruva's coastline. The air smells faintly of salt. Her voice steadies, the tone of someone no longer afraid. "If you ever find it again," she says, "ask permission before you stay." The lights dim as her reflection merges with the ocean's shimmer beyond the glass. Months later, a satellite scan captures a brief anomaly, an island appearing in open sea for 40 seconds before vanishing again. Analysts dismiss it as glitch data, but in the final frame, the shoreline glows faintly, and a single figure stands at its edge, watching the horizon. Lena's voice overlays the footage, calm and distant. "We're never alone out there. We just stopped listening long ago." The screen fades to black as a soft, rhythmic hum begins. The sound of the ocean breathing.